Hi there, Neil from Diagonal Move here. I'm going to play a game today of Flamme Rouge, a bicycle racing game. It's been around for a few years, and really what it allows you to do is to take a team of cyclists and compete over a single day's bicycle racing. Now, over the years, this game has had a few different expansions. First, we had the Meteo expansion, which added in the bad weather. Then there was an expansion called Peloton, and what that did was it allowed you to expand the number of players and also importantly to play solo, where you add an additional card into the opposing decks to give you the ability to run multiple decks of opponents. Now, despite those two expansions, almost immediately the game came out, the fan base of Flamme Rouge were looking for a way to link individual races together into what's known as a Grand Tour. And for those of you who don't know much about cycling, a Grand Tour is something like the Tour de France, the Vuelta d'España, or the Giro d'Italia. Multiple days racing over several weeks, and the teams compete to win the tour, with an individual member of those teams eventually claiming the title of champion. Now, that isn't currently possible in any official variant, but some years ago there was an unofficial variant done by the original designer of the game, but nevertheless it's currently unreleased, called the Grand Tour. And basically what you do in the Grand Tour is you link these stages together, and you use this board here to adjust the time of your individual rider and the number of points for your overall team. At the end of the series of stages, you have an ultimate winner. Now, what I'm going to do here is slightly different again, because people who enjoy this game do like to recreate famous races, and this user here of Board Game Geek, Bieran Owlpants, has created a full 21 stage Tour de France 2022 game within the Flamme Rouge world. And so I'm going to play that. I'm going to play all 21 of those stages, link them all together using the Grand Tour rules, and produce what is going to be a highlights video. So I won't be playing through all 21 games live, but we will have the edited highlights of that Grand Tour right here played out on this board. I've been wanting to do this for a very, very long time. If I had a better sense of timing, I would have done this when the Tour de France was actually going on, but I don't. So here we are now, a month late. But the point we're going to get at here is this is a bit of a vanity video for me, with a game that I love and linked in an unofficial expansion. Now, because this is an unofficial expansion and indeed a fan-made variant of that unofficial expansion, I'm not going to go too much into the rules, but the basic gist of how the game works is each of these individual riders will have a deck of cards, and you'll draw 4 and then choose one of those 4 for that player or that rider to move. So say you want it to move 5 spaces, you'll play that card, and then that card is discarded from the game. And then depending where you are on the board, that's who goes first, and you'll move around the board based on the cards played. If you find yourself in a position, for example like this, where one rider is behind another with a single space, you can slipstream, giving yourself a benefit in terms of where you are on the board, which represents that kind of aerodynamic advantage that you get being behind another rider in a big group. However, if you are 2 or more spaces, you do not get that advantage, and you take one of these junk cards, these exhaustion cards as they're known, into your hand to make life a little bit more difficult for you. As you go around the track, you will have certain spaces, for example this red space here, which represents mountains, blue spaces which represent the descents, and they influence the speed that you can go in those areas, either fast for the descent or slow for the uphills. Now, we do have stage 1 here. This is the time trial stage. I believe the time trial in the Tour de France this year was in Denmark. So we're going to be time trialing around Copenhagen. Copenhagen being very flat, this hill here is essentially a speed bump. The way the rules work for the time trial, as it's written here, is slightly different. You basically have a limited number of cards, which I'm going to play through, and I'll show you the edited highlights of how the stage goes. Now, in order to fully get the experience of a Tour de France game, I need you to introduce you to the riders. Each team in a game of Flamme Rouge has two riders, a rouleur and a sprinter. They each have separate decks of cards with slightly different values. The rouleurs are good all-rounders, real team players. The sprinters, slightly less effective on the hills, but very fast on the flat. Here on Team Diagonal Move in the pink, we have Jay, who is a rouleur so famous for digging deep in a breakaway that his merchandise is actually a very successful range of shovels, while T here, the sprinter, is a legendary character, has won more titles and more sprint races than anyone else, but has recently been caught in a controversy for taking performance-reducing drugs. On the peloton team in green, the first of our solo AIs, we have the Headhunter and the Ferret. A rivalry between these two has existed for years. Between them, they have taken more Grand Tour titles than any other group in history, and they're neck and neck now on the same team, vying for the greatest tour rider of all time. However, they're on the same team. Will they work together? Will they not? We will find out. On the muscle team, we have P and D. Famous for their immodest peddling style, the longevity of their careers, and an unfortunate habit of going off on a tangent during press interviews. We'll now line the riders up on the position, and I'll kick off this time trial here in Copenhagen. Stage 1 of the 2022 Flamme Rouge Tour de France Grand Tour. In Copenhagen, it's a short stage, just a time trial. A few changes to the rules. You don't gain exhaustion unless you are the player who has played the highest value card, and you only use 2/3 of the deck. I'm going to apply a little bit of common sense or leeway with the exhaustion rules overall, because normally in the solo game the AI completely ignores any exhaustion, but here, in order to generate that carryover effect from one stage to another, I'm going to say that in this time trial the AI will generate exhaustion for itself as normal and for a player, and the AI will also get an exhaustion card throughout the series of games if they run out of their normal cards during the game. That's important because when you carry through, you will get more and more tired as you go, and you'll discard some of the exhaustion cards during rest days and things like that. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on each game, but just to show you quickly how the game does work for those who have never played it before. And so the first thing you do is, for each of our cyclists, our rouleur and our sprinter, we need to draw 4 cards and then choose one to move. And the first thing to note is you look at your 4 cards for each of your players, your riders, one at a time, and then you make a decision. Put the cards face down, and then you choose the other one. You don't have any real memory or any real reference of what you've gone before, so there's an element of memory there. And for the first turn, my rouleur J is going to have that card. He's going to play a 3. These cards here sit to one side, ready for use next turn. The sprinter T, in my case, he's going to play a 2. He's going to save that 9 card for later on. Play a 2 now. Okay, that is my turn done. These are our 2 cards. I'm going to place them face up at the bottom of the board there, slightly off screen, but I will now play the other teams, including the peloton team, who will all both play the same card. They'll move the same distance except when they have their special card. Then the rouleur for the muscle team and the sprinter for the muscle team. Okay, so we have 3 5s So the way the game would move is you'll start with the furthest person furthest forward on the right if there is a tie. So the first one will move will be the sprinter, followed by the green sprinter, my sprinter having to move over to the side when there's a space, and then the rouleur, and finally my sprinter. That's the end of the round. We then do any slipstreaming, and according to the Grand Tour rules, or this variant of the Grand Tour rules, we will take exhaustion for the highest card drawn. Now, we don't have a highest card drawn, there are 3 ties, so in this case I think we will just take one for each. Why not? They put in a bit of effort at first. Those cards are then put to one side and not used again. The cards for my player are discarded from the game. Almost straight away we run into an interesting moment as we approach that speed bump on the first corner. The rouleur here, the blue rouleur, who is in front, that is Phil, I think, and we have got 6, which means he should in theory be able to go here. However, he's hit the mountains, or that speed bump at least, meaning the furthest he can go is 5 and will have to stop there. There's no slipstreaming from Phil there now either. Next up we have the green sprinter, the ferret, and that is going to be 1, 2, 3. And then we have the blue sprinter D, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now we've reached a point here, we cannot end our turn on the spaces of another rider, so we fall behind. And then finally my 2 guys T is 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, slipstreaming, no slipstreaming from this guy here, because so then normally in a normal game with multiplayers both these riders would get an exhaustion, but they don't do it for the solo and they don't do it for this fan variant either. But we do get a slipstream advantage just here, meaning the exhaustion will go to our rouleur on the blue players team. End of the time trial. Stage 1 is nearly over. Just got to get the riders across the line and then we can look at the GC for the day. These are the last cards drawn, or at least for some of the teams it will be the last cards drawn. The highest player is myself, with the team diagonal move rouleur gaining an exhaustion. But the first player to move will be that rouleur, so they move 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have moved off the board, and that doesn't normally happen, but in this variant it does. Next up we will move the green sprinter, who will move 5. The diagonal move sprinter, then the green rouleur. Now all 4 of those guys have finished. Before we can finish completely, we just need to work out what's happening to the blue team. The sprinter is moving 5 and the rouleur moving 4. Okay, so that is actually not quite the end. We do need to work out the GC for the 4 riders that are across the line, but the 2 blue team members there, they still have to finish, which we'll do shortly. Okay, but the way the GC works, and I'll just clear up a little bit and show you how the GC works. I'm using these Carcassonne meeples to represent the riders. The taller ones are the sprinter, the smaller ones being the rouleur, and then these 3 down the bottom here are the overall team classification. Now basically the points are decided based on how far you cross the line and in what position you cross the line. Now everyone starts at the start, and then the riders who did not cross the line, which would be the 2 blue team members, they move one space to the right from that start position. So they're both behind at this point. Riders that did cross the line are moved one space up for each of the spaces that they crossed the line. So we will start with the green rouleur, the pink rouleur, and then 4 spaces for the green sprinter. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The pink rouleur J moved off the board, going a full 5 spaces plus an additional one. So you do carry on up the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Basically what that means is each rider will continue to gain or lose time based on how they've done during the ride. Now in terms of the remainder of this particular game, we remove the 4 riders that finished and then draw for the sprinter, which is a 5, and then finally the rouleur. There are no cards left for the rouleur, so they must draw an exhaustion, and they move just the 2, and then we adjust the GC again, so the sprinter moves 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the rouleur just 1. Okay, so at the end of the time trial, the team diagonal move are in the lead. The rouleur is some 10 seconds ahead of the green sprinter, who is the headhunter, if I recall correctly, and then our T diagonal move is in 3rd position, followed by the headhunter, and then D and P for the blue team are tailing behind already. But as with all these things, cycling can change very quickly from one day to the next, and so we'll just adjust the GC and move in to stage 2. Once you've finished working out the individual places and times for the riders, you then work out the varying points. So the first person goes 1, 2, 3. The second person for the stage gains their team 2, and then the third person for the stage gains their team 1 point. My sprinter was 3rd, so gain another point. Blue are somewhat tailing behind now. Okie dokie, that is stage 1 of the 2022 Tour de France finished. I'll clear up, start stage 2. Stage 2 stays in Denmark at another very flat stage overall, travelling from Roskilde all the way up to Nyborg. There is a small hill here, or a couple of small hills, Catfall Hills, so there's something a bit more significant than the speed bump of day 1. And already we have a breakaway appearing, with the team of the Ferret and the Headhunter taking an early advantage over that first hill, joined there by Phil from the team of the blue team. The blue sprinter there, D, he is suffering a little bit, but not quite as much as team diagonal move with J and T, who both seem to have been suffering from the exertions of the time trial. So let's see what happens now and the breakaway as we move into the second and final hill of the day. We've already selected the cards. We have a 3 for the green team, who will both share that move. 2 for the blue sprinter, someone else who's definitely been struggling over the course of the time trial. 2 for the blue rouleur as well. Okay, so that team's definitely starting to feel the effects of the breakaway. 5 for the sprinter on the team diagonal move, T, who, you know, really not much point doing anything more than that. 5 will get us to here for a bit of free speed on the way down, and then the same for our rouleur. So let's see what happens with that. 3 is a nice tactical move for the green team there, getting onto the descent for some free descending next turn. We then have the 2 on the foothill there, and a 3 will take us here. So no exhaustion cards for either of those two teams, should they have required them, but being the AI, they won't require them. Leaving just my team and the blue sprinter. So starting with J, our roulette. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We caught them up on the foot of the second hill. And then 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like the group is coming back together. Rest of the stage is very, very flat. Let's see what happens as we get near the end. Pre-race questions about whether the ferret and the headhunter would work together on the same team have seemed to have been put aside already in this year's Tour de France, as they're working together to plough a big hole in the entire peloton there, with Jay struggling to keep up from Team Diagonal Move, and also the roulette sprinter of D and P together with T from Team Diagonal Move, but all struggling in the background, racking up exhaustion from Team Diagonal Move. Okay, let's see how we do and whether we can catch this breakaway. Okay, so we have the peloton card, a 2, a 4, a 9 and a 6. Okay, interesting choice of tactics from the peloton team, because the leader will move forward just 2 spaces. Meanwhile, the ferret will move forward a full 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, making a strong break for home there. Maybe the first signs that the cooperation between the 2 teammates will not stand the test of time. The roulette for Team Diagonal Move moving forward 6. 9 for T. Coming back together a little bit there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, 4 spaces for the blue team, for P there, who is in the, sorry, for D there, who is in a supply zone still, so he will get a free bonus space. So 3, 4. Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. So looks like this race is wide open now. We'll see what happens as we move towards the later stages of the race. Final moments of stage 2, and it looks like the headhunter is going to take the stage some distance away still, but the main peloton has now come back together with Team Diagonal Move and the ferret together in the closing straights as well. So we'll take this last round and then we'll look at the GC and see what happens and just how much time P from the blue team are going to lose. So we have a 7 for J, a 9 for T. Over on the blue team, D, P is pulling out a 5 with a 3, a mere 3 here for D. Looks like to be really struggling after yesterday's exertions. And finally, the ferret and the headhunter are going to go for a 6. Let's see how we do in terms of getting across the line. So moving first, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, the stage has been won by the headhunter, unsurprisingly there. Next up, we have the ferret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, not quite finishing, not quite finishing. T is going to try to make a sprint for the line. 6, 7, 8, 9. We've made it across the line there. A Team Diagonal Move. Not quite finished, J, after all the effort put in trying to pull back the team of the headhunter and the ferret. But we now have the stragglers almost with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, okay, the stage has been won. That attack from the headhunter blew apart the GC today on stage 2. The headhunter has moved into first position in GC, a full 50 seconds ahead of J from Team Diagonal Move, who is only fractionally ahead of T from Diagonal Move. The ferret is coming back a couple of minutes behind, followed at some distance by the blue team of P and D. All to play for still though, although it does look like on overall tour points there's going to be a struggle for the muscle team of the blue player to get caught back up, even though we are still at very early stages. I really need to think of a real name for the blue and green teams. I'll think of something and come back for stage 3. Stage 3 of this year's Tour de France sees riders travel 182 kilometres from Vili to Sodenberg, staying in Denmark for the third and final time of this year's tour. And we have today the introduction of the pavé, some narrow cobbled streets that create havoc, or the potential to create havoc for this year's tour. And as is tradition, along with the pavé comes the bad weather, with high winds playing their part throughout the early part of the race, and the rain forecasted in the final stages. The relentless wind in the early part of the stage and the pavé have conspired to break apart the peloton in today's stage. Early part of the race, the green team of the Headhunter and the Ferret attacked early on the breakaway again, trying to come up to do that cooperative attack from yesterday, trying to repeat the success of that. But as with yesterday, the individual spirit of the two riders overcame their cooperativeness, and the Headhunter went out onto the attack against his own teammate. The remainder of the field trying to keep up, but the wind and the pavé have caused endless delays, and the field have broken into two. Team Diagonal Move there have been struggling throughout, picking up exhaustion cards due to just being out of place at the wrong time. We're coming into the final element of the pavé now. Time to have a quick look to see if the field will come together before the big bunch sprint at the end that everyone is expecting. Okay, so we have a 6 for the rouleur and 9 for the sprinter. So Team Diagonal Move are going on to the offensive. Blue team, we have P attacking as well, and a similar result for D there. So the peloton are trying to bring back this gap created by the Headhunter and the Ferret, and it looks like the green team are starting to feel the effects of their attacks against each other and the rest of the field drawing an exhaustion card. Okay, let's play this out and see how it goes. Just the 2 spaces for both the Headhunter and the Ferret, but the Ferret is starting on the supply zone, so they gain an extra 2 spaces for a total of 4. No slipstreaming on the pavé, should that be applicable at any point in the race. Next up we have T for Team Diagonal Move. They're in the supply zone, but they've drawn a 9, so no extra benefit there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, right up behind the Headhunter there, but we cannot pass, and so we stop behind the pavé, causing a traffic jam as we expected. Next up then is the sprinter for the blue team, which is D, rolling a 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, it looks like this peloton is coming back together over the pavé towards the back half of this race. 6 for P. 6. Not so good. Ended up in the supply zone, but out of slipstreaming reach, so there's going to be some more exhaustion there for the rouleur on Team Diagonal Move. And finally, 6 for the blue rouleur, P. Okay, the race is slowly coming back together, but there are still some significant gaps due to the pavé. In the closing moments of stage 3, the sprinters' train has really ramped up, with all 3 sprinters out ahead of the main peloton. D, the sprinter for the blue team, is trying to make a break for it and spoil the big bunch sprint that we were all expecting. But there's driving rain at the finish line, so we may see a few incidents yet. So let's just see what we have. We have a 6 for Diagonal Moves rouleur and a 4 for the sprinter. Okay, so that's showing signs of tiredness. The 7 for the rouleur from the blue team, that's P. Just a 2 for D, the sprinter on the blue team. So it looks like that break is slowly going to be drawn in, and a 3 for the team of the Ferret and the Headhunter. Okay, let's play this out. Just 2 for the blue sprinter. The finish line so close and yet so far. For team diagonal move, T is moving just 4 spaces behind. We could well get that bunch sprint after all. 3, 4. The sprinter for the green team. 6, 4, P, the rouleur. 3 for the ferret, and finally P, putting in a big effort with 7, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Okay, the race has come almost to a complete conclusion with a bunch sprint. First big bunch sprint of this year's tour, and the first thing to do is reveal the card for J, the rouleur for team diagonal move, which is a 5. That's going to see him across the finish line. Next up, T, the sprinter, is a 4 again across the finish line. It's going to be very close. The rouleur for the blue team, which is P, has pushed a 7. A good final finish there for P. Blue sprinter is just 2. The early efforts to try and close the stage clearly taking their toll. And finally, the green team with 4. So let's play this out. Just 2 for the blue sprinter. Crosses the finish line, but is unlikely to have won. 4 for the pink sprinter from team diagonal move. A 4 for the green sprinter. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have our first 3 sprinters across the line. Next up is team diagonal move again. 1, 2, 3, 4. They have not yet finished. They are stuck behind the bunch there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like that effort there from the blue rouleur P may well have actually won the stage. Yes, it does appear that the blue rouleur P has crossed the finish line first in that bunch sprint. Fantastic final effort to get through the peloton there. All that remains now is to work out the timings on the GC. The diagonal move rouleur is going to finish a few seconds behind the main bunch. Probably not a huge impact on the GC today, but a great finish to a great stage. An overnight transition moves the Tour de France onto French soil for the first time in this year's tour. 171.5 kilometres from Dunkirk to Calais, moving over some very undulating terrain, 6 category 4 climbs, many of which are represented here in the game board as additional pavé. This has a similar effect to the mountains in the game, in the sense that it blocks slipstreaming and causes a few little positioning hassles for the players. There is a genuine ascent and descent here immediately before the finishing line. Overall, the stage looks like it could well be one for a breakaway. Early breakaways put team diagonal move on the back foot for quite some time, but everything has now come back together at the foot of the final Cat 4 climb of the day. Most of the peloton is together, but we do have a few stragglers forming, mostly as a result of those earlier breakaways and the lower value cards coming through as tiredness sets in. Time to reveal the cards for the climb of then. A 7 for the pink rouleur, a 3 for the sprinter, struggling there. 5 for the blue rouleur P, and a 5 for the sprinter T. That is the muscle card, the special card that the solo AI gets for the muscle team, and then a 3 for the green team. So exhaustion setting in all round, except for a potential attack by the blue team. So let's resolve this, and we can only go 5 with this card here due to the fact we're crossing a mountain space or an ascent, limiting the total number of movement to 5. So we have at least got onto the descent, meaning that next turn there will be a minimum of 5 spaces moved by J, the pink rouleur. T, the team diagonal move sprinter, moves 3. No slipstreaming, so that's going to be another exhaustion card for the diagonal move team, unless another rider drops in the middle there, which I possibly may happen. We'll find out in just a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, the blue roulette P has dropped in between the two diagonal move riders, meaning that just the diagonal move roulette will generate an exhaustion card this turn. Next up, we have the final card for the green team. No slipstreaming again, even if they were close enough due to the mountain space. And then finally that muscle card, trying to get T, the blue sprinter, back into the race. Cresting the mountaintop, then we reveal the cards for Team Diagonal Move. First, both of which are showing signs of strain. Then the blue team with the roulette and the sprinter. Finally, the green team. So, worth getting rid of the two exhaustion cards because at least one of the team are on the blue space, giving them a free speed boost. Tiring stage, it seems, though, overall. Let's play that through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So close to the finish for the diagonal move roulette. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The green sprinter crests the hill, and close behind is the roulette for the green team. No slipstreaming because the roulette is on the hill despite there being a gap there for the descent. Finally, T, the blue sprinter, who is currently the final player in the race in this stage and in the race overall, only moves 2 spaces to the foot of the hill. Stage 4 looks like finishing in another sprint, but let's reveal the cards because there's some fast moving riders coming up immediately behind. So first up then for J, the roulette on diagonal move team, rolls a 4, that's going to definitely cross the finish line. T, the roulette sprinter, puts in a real boost that will also get across the finish line. Looks like it's forming into a bunch sprint. The roulette for the blue team, P, crosses the finish line as well. The sprinter T for the blue team crosses the hill but will not finish this turn. Finally, the green team doesn't look like they're going to cross the finish line because the sprinter there will only move 2 spaces and not finish, and the 9 for the roulette is limited to 5 because they are still on the hill. Interesting move there. Sometimes the AI does do these strange things, but let's resolve this because it all depends on the positioning. Roulette moving straight across the finish line. Just 2 for the green sprinter, 9 for T, finishing very near the front of the pack there. Another 5 spaces for the ferret because of the limitation of the mountain space, and then 5 for the blue roulette, who has finally crossed the mountain but is struggling to keep pace with the rest of the pack. The GC at the end of stage 4 sees Team Diagonal Move sprinter T fractionally ahead of the headhunter from the green team. Coming in 3rd, 4th and 5th are the 3 roulettes, followed at some distance by D, the sprinter for the blue team. Lost a lot of time on the green team, the roulette, the ferret, possibly a result of the lack of cooperation, it seems, between the 2 legendary riders. Meanwhile, though, P for the blue team, the roulette, has closed the distance between them and the top 3. Stage 5 is 153 kilometres from Lille Metropole to Arenberg Port to Hainaut. Long sprawling track. Once again we have real life terrain features represented in the game by the pavé in various places. That's okay though, we don't mind a bit of pavé here at Diagonal Move, unless of course I'm riding on it myself. Some features of my own that I've added this particular stage: we have rain affecting both the pavé and the long straight just there, plus a precipitous table edge, and who knows what will happen there. 5 stages of accumulated exhaustion has seen Team Diagonal Move dropped, with Jay, our ever dependable rouleur, finally cracking and being shot out the back of the peloton. There's a breakaway here, again the team of the Ferret and the Headhunter moving really hard and fast in the early part of the race. They've got round the precipitous corner through the first part of the rain, but we're just moving into the pavé. Let's see how things go here. We're going to have to put in some kind of special effort to try and catch up there at Team Diagonal Move. So let's see what we've got. We've got a 6 for J, our rouleur, a 9 for T, our sprinter, currently leader of the overall race. Moving on to the blue team, the rouleur P has drawn a 5, which is going to take him into the pavé. D, their sprinter, rolls a 9 as well, which is again going to take it into the pavé, I think. And then finally 4 for the Ferret and the Headhunter. So starting with the green team. Okay, then the sprinter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the blue sprinter moves up behind the green team. Fortunately, there was a double space there, so no crash in this instance with the rain. 9 for the sprinter. My goodness me, it looks like we may have avoided all crashes so far. That's another 3 for that one. And then finally the rouleur. Next set of cards have been chosen then, and see how we can get through this wet and slippery pavé. A 5 for J, our rouleur. A 2 for T, the sprinter. Exhaustion, it's true, but perhaps a sensible move, allowing space for the rest of the field to move into that very slippery and wet cobblestone. The blue rouleur is a 7, a 4 for the blue sprinter, who is here. And then finally the green team has a peloton card, so that's going to be a very strong attack on the front there from that team. Okay, first one moves just 2 spaces, then the sprinter moves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, their cooperation appearing to break down slightly. The rouleur moves 7. There's a 4 for their sprinter, just 2 for Diagonal Move sprinter, and then a 5 for the rouleur. Okay, things are looking tenuous for Diagonal Move at the moment. It looks like there's going to be some significant time lost. The exhaustion cars are coming through thick and fast, and there is a significant break in the field now. And there's been a crash. A touch of wheels on the wet pavé sees T from Diagonal Move come crashing to the ground. Worst thing that could have happened, just catching up to the back of the peloton, and this happens. There's going to be a 2 movement point penalty to whatever card is played next by the Diagonal Move sprinter. It would seem that any kind of cooperation between Team Diagonal Move is going to be a struggle, and this hand of cards for our rouleur J seems to sum up the reason why. Endless exhaustion cards, exhaustion after exhaustion from the last few days, and I do think this stage is now going to be a significant one in terms of the overall classification, and honestly, Team Diagonal Move are going to plummet downwards like a stone. Through the magic of amateur television, the track has been reorientated to be able to focus more clearly on this final kilometre or 2 of the race. We do actually already have a victor the rouleur for the blue team P crossed the line some time ago, gaining a few significant minutes worth of time there, but now we have a semi-bunch sprint for the follow-up places, including our sprinter T, who through a Herculean effort that racked up more exhaustion cards than was probably sensible, has rejoined the back of the main peloton. Sadly, our rouleur J is barely even visible on the screen. See what happens now. Our rouleur J, how is he doing? Oh, he's found some energy at the very end of the race. Our sprinter has drawn a 3. A 3, 4. The blue sprinter and the green team have a 3 also. We may not see everyone finish. Okay. No, we do not have a finish just yet. Carrying on now with what is surely the final elements of this stage. We first draw an exhaustion card for the rouleur for diagonal move, a 2 for the sprinter for diagonal move. Definitely too many exhaustion cards in this team at the moment. The sprinter for the blue team D has a 5, a good effort there from him at the end, and finally the green sprinter moves a 7. So we're going to see a significant change on the GC. Everybody apart from diagonal move has finished. It's going to be a little while, I think, before they get across the line fully. So let's just jump to the GC and see what happens in terms of the overall classification. A truly terrible day in the saddle for Team Diagonal Move has seen the rouleur J drop back to dead last, losing minutes on everybody else in the field. Also lost the overall yellow jersey for the sprinter T, who also lost minutes on the green sprinter and the blue rouleur, who both now leapfrog over and take podium position and second position. Overall though, on the classifications, the Team Diagonal Move is still the strongest team overall due to consistency in other stages, but blue and green are both now catching up quite quickly. 220 kilometers from Vanches to Longwy will take our riders across multiple categorized climbs in the first of this year's noticeably hilly, almost mountainous stages. There are 2 Cat 3 climbs, a Category 4 climb to navigate, and the first of this year's uphill finishes at Longwy. The stage comes hot on the heels of a disastrous day yesterday for Team Diagonal Move, in which exhaustion really took its toll on the team's performance, and we had a complete change of general classification, even allowing for the thinning of those exhaustion cards at the end of each stage. The decks for Team Diagonal Move are still horribly bloated with exhaustion, and one wonders if the first of this year's rest days can come soon enough for the team. A reasonably slow start to the race. The peloton reached the foot of the first categorized climb, all in a big group, and are now working their way up the side of that mountain. The Headhunter, our overall race leader, the green sprinter, has made a break, taken the King of the Mountains points for that particular hill, and is now about to make their descent down into the supply zone just here. The remainder of the peloton are going to have to try and crest that hill and make up some time on the way down, or risk letting even more time slip through their fingers. Looking then at the cards, we have a 6 for J, a 2 for our sprinter T, which may not be a great card to play on the surface, but it will go over the hill and the hope of making time up on that descent. The blue rouleur has made for a 7, a 3 for D, the blue sprinter currently at the back of the peloton, and the green team with 5. So the headhunter is not going to take advantage of the free speed on the descent, but the 5 will take him way down into the valley after that hill. The 7 for the blue rouleur will crest the hill, but will be limited to just 5 spaces due to the effect of starting on that hill, while the sprinter for Team Diagonal Move tops the hill and is now making his descent also. Looks like the green team are now all fully on the descent, and we have a race down to the valley floor, rejoining the race on the final moments of the final climbs of the day. Largely uneventful ride through the valley floor. Peloton stayed mostly together, but now we are on the slopes of the hills, and there's a false flat just here that may well provide a little bit of an advantage to the green team, who are currently first and second position. Okay, so green team will both finish this turn. The rouleur there gaining 5 because of the false flat. The remainder of the peloton came across the line in a single group, all gaining the same time, and really there's been no significant change in the overall general classification. A few extra bits of time here and a few losses of time there, but the classification remains the same moving into stage 7. Stage 6 flirted with the idea of cycling at altitude, but it's stage 7 that represents the first true mountain stage in this year's race. Taking in 2 third category climbs as the route winds its way from Tomblaine to the ski station at the top of the Super Planche de Belfi. Mountaintop finish today will test every rider in the race, and we could well see some changes in GC at the end of the day's racing. A small gap has opened up in the field as we move down the descent of the first categorised climb and into the ascent of the second. Interesting to see if this gap can be maintained, possibly a breakaway forming as we speak. Let's see what the cards show. A 3 for the rouleur, who is just here. 3 for the sprinter, so that's not even going to get him to the foot of the hill. Blue rouleur has a 5. Not really taking advantage of the descent, but possibly going to catch the sprinter for Diagonal Move. The sprinter for the blue team will benefit from the descent, currently positioned at the back of the field, and the green team will roll a player 7, meaning at least the sprinter will be on the hill. Let's have a look and see how that goes, but we're going to be limited because they are on the hill. Okay, so 5 takes them to the top of that first of the hill there. Sprinter for Diagonal Move has been left behind by the headhunter, who is the current GC yellow jersey holder. Next up we have the rouleur, who's going to get 5 due to the descent. Then the blue rouleur, the green rouleur, 5, 6, 7, and finally the blue sprinter will get a full 5 due to the descent. Moving here and benefiting from the slipstream. So it looks like our yellow jersey is making a break for it, possibly going for a long win, but there's a long way to go, and we'll see how that plays out. The yellow jersey held off the peloton all the way to the foot of the final mountain of the day. However, as soon as he was caught, his teammate attacked, taking the blue rouleur with him. A gap has formed now at the foot of the hill, and we will soon see quite what impact this small breakaway on the foot of the hill has on the main race. Revealing the cards, a 7 for the Diagonal Move rouleur. That will take the rider some 5 spaces. A 9 for the Diagonal Move sprinter, desperately trying to get back into the race. Team Diagonal Move following a challenging few days. The blue rouleur has drawn a 6. Maximum you can move on that hill is a 5. 2 for the blue sprinter, just here, starting to struggle again. And a 5 for the green team of the headhunter and the ferret. Let's play this attack out. 2, 3, 4, 5, not quite at the finish there. The ferret, and a 5 for the blue rouleur as well. Okay, they're neck and neck as they go over the top of the mountain. The field has been blown apart by this attack on the final mountain of the day. Exhaustion cards being racked up for the sprinter for diagonal move yet again, and there is a clear gap now between the different parts of the race. Closing stages of this race saw the ferret stay away, but only just from the blue rouleur, his teammate, and the pink rouleur for diagonal move. But there is a gap between the main peloton and the riders who were dropped on the final stage of the mountain, including the former yellow jersey of T for team diagonal move and the sprinter D for the blue team. Will there be a change on GC? Let's have a quick look. Following the dramatic conclusion to today's racing, there has been no significant change to the GC. However, the time gaps are now growing quite significantly between the leader, the headhunter, and the remainder of the race. It's going to be tough to catch that particular rider now. It looks like there's a significant challenge ahead of the remaining teams, most particularly Team Diagonal Move, who has not only lost the yellow jersey in the last few days, but has also seen the teammate plummet to almost dead last, and the Tour classification overall for the team competition has now seen Team Diagonal Move drop behind the green team. Challenging first week of racing for all concerned, and there's still 2 days before the first official rest day. I will stop the video here and move on to stage 8 in the next one. Please do stay tuned for this highlights reel of my campaign game of Flamme Rouge Tour de France 2022. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've been enjoying this as much as I have, and I hope to see you next time.